My elder brother. Author, Munshi Premchand. Illustrator, Swathi Sambasivam. Translator, Madhu Joshi. My elder brother was 5 years older than me, but he was my senior in school by only 3 grades. Of course, he entered school at the same age as I did, but he did not approve of unseemly hurry in important matters like education. He wished to build a strong base to support a grand edifice. He took 2 years to do what could be done in 1. And sometimes he took 3 years. How would one build a strong and handsome house on a weak foundation? I was younger, he was older. I was 9 years old, he was 14. To supervise and oversee me in every way was his birthright. And it was my privilege to regard his orders as undisputed law. He was very studious. He always had a book open in front of him. Perhaps to refresh his tired mind, he drew sketches of birds, dogs and cats, sometimes in his notebooks, and at other times, on the margins of his books. He would write a name or a word, or a sentence over and over again. Sometimes he would calligraph a couplet in fine lettering. He often wrote something that had no obvious meaning. For example, I once found this cryptic sentence in his notebook: special, Amina, brothers, in fact, brothers, Ridhatium Esquire, for an hour, and all this writing was followed by the drawing of a man's face. I tried to decode the puzzle but failed. I could not muster the courage to ask him. He was in the 9th standard, I was in the 5th. To understand his creations was beyond me. I, on the other hand, had no interest in studies and could not sit down with a book. Reading for an hour was more tiring than scaling the highest peak. At every opportunity I would rush to the playing field, where I would throw pebbles in the air, fly paper butterflies. And if I could find a friend, we climbed the boundary wall and jumped off it, or climbed the gate and pushed it back and forth to enjoy an imaginary car ride. Afterwards, entering the room to face my furious brother was unnerving. His first question would be, "Where have you been?" Always the same question, in the same tone. My only answer would be meek silence. I do not know why I could not tell him I had just been playing outside. My silence was as good as a confession of my crimes. And my elder brother would then feel compelled to scold me in words which were angry yet affectionate. If this is how you are going to study English, you will never learn a word of it in your entire life. English is not child's play. If it was, every Tom, Dick, and Harry would have become an English scholar. One has to strain one's eyes day and night, give up all fun and pleasure. And even then one gains only superficial knowledge. Even renowned scholars can't write pure English, far less speak it. What a fool you are. You refuse to learn from my example. Don't you see how hard I work? Have you ever seen me going to a fete or a fair? There are hockey and cricket matches almost every day, I ignore them completely. I study all the time and still spend 2 or 3 years in the same class. How do you expect to sail through if you keep wasting your time in sports and play? You are going to rot in this class all your life. If you are going to waste your life like this, it would be so much better to just go home and enjoy playing gully danda. Why waste father's hard-earned money on school fees? Gully danda, a traditional Indian team game of skill played with a wooden baton and a small piece of wood. Listening to his harsh words, I would weep. What else could I have done? I was guilty and had to bear the consequences. My elder brother was an expert preacher. He would say the most hurtful things and quote proverbs that broke my heart to pieces. I would lose all courage. I could never work as hard as him. In those moments of hopelessness, I thought of giving up on studies and going home. Why waste my life trying to do something that was beyond me? I was prepared to remain a dunce because even the thought of burning the midnight oil made me dizzy. Within a couple of hours or so, the gloom would lift, and I would decide to put my heart and soul into my studies. I would quickly have a timetable ready. How could one move forward without a map and strategy? The timetable would have no time for fun and play. Wake up early, freshen up and have breakfast. Study English from 6 to 8, maths from 8 to 9. History would be 9 to 9:30, then a midday meal, and off to school. Back from school at 3:30 and rest for half an hour, then geography from 4 to 5. A half an hour break for a walk in front of the hostel, after which English composition from 6:30 to 7. Dinner, translation from 8 to 9 followed by Hindi from 9 to 10. 10 to 11 for other subjects. Then to bed. Drawing up a timetable is one thing, sticking to it is quite another. From the first day, it would be ignored. The pleasant greenery of the playing field, the fresh breeze, the boisterous energy of football, the feints and ambushes of kabaddi, the fast pace of volleyball, all these pulled me to the sports field, and I would forget everything. That murderous timetable, those blinding books, all would be forgotten. And my elder brother would have another opportunity to upbraid and condemn me. I would avoid his watchful eye. I would enter the room soundlessly, and his raised brow would kill me. I always felt a sword hanging over my head. Quite like a person who cannot give up worldly attachment even in the face of death and calamity, I could not avoid sports and play, despite his rebuke and scolding. Kabaddi, an Indian game. Then the annual exams arrived. My elder brother failed. I passed the exam at the top of my class. Now I was his junior by just 2 classes. I really felt like asking my brother, whatever happened to your severe penance? Look at me, I enjoyed play and sports, and yet topped my class. But he was so unhappy and sad that I only felt sympathy for him in my heart. The very idea of rubbing salt into his wounds felt shameful. Yes, I grew somewhat proud of myself and gained a little self-respect. I was no longer in awe of my brother. My heart grew bolder. I participated freely in all sports. If he criticized me again, I was going to ask him to his face what he had gained by depriving himself of all fun. Though I did not have the courage to brag verbally, my attitude made it clear that I was no longer terrified of my elder brother. My elder brother sensed it. He was sharp and fairly commonsensical despite everything. One morning as I returned at mealtime, after devoting the entire morning to gully danda, he pounced on me. So you cleared the exam and topped the class, and it has gone to your head. Brother, the pride of the highest and mightiest has a fall. Who do you think you are? You must have read about Raven. Didn't you learn anything at all from his character? Raven, the mighty demon king of Lanka who kidnapped Ram's wife Sita. Ultimately, Ram waged a war on him and killed him. Having cleared the exam is nothing. Intelligence is the real thing. Understand the meaning of what you read. Raven ruled the earth. Such kings are called Chakravarti, uncontested universal rulers. Nowadays the British have a huge empire, but they cannot be called Chakravarti. Many nations of the world do not accept the sovereignty of the British. They are independent. Raven was a Chakravarti. All the kings of the world paid him tax. The gods were his slaves, even the gods of water and fire. But pride led to his downfall. There was no one who could have helped him. A man may commit any sort of sin, but he should never be proud. Pride leaves one with nothing. You must have read about Satan. He prided himself in being the greatest devotee of God. The result was that he was exiled from heaven to hell. The king of Persia too allowed pride to go to his head. He was reduced to begging for food. You cleared a mere exam and that has turned your head. Don't think you will make progress. Understand this clearly, you did not pass because of your hard work. It was just blind luck. But luck does not work every time. Sometimes one hits the target by fluke. That does not make one a great player. A real player is one who never misses a strike. Don't judge me by my failure in the examination. When you reach my grade, you will have a very hard time cracking tough problems in algebra and geometry and reading English history. Remembering the names of the kings is no child's play. There have been 8 Henrys. Do you think it is easy to remember which event took place during which Henry's time? Write Henry VIII instead of Henry VII, and you get a big 0. There have been dozens of Jameses, dozens of Williams, scores of Charleses. The mind can recall nothing. These wretches couldn't even find enough names, just added 2-3 IV after the same name. Had they just asked me, I would have given them a million names. And only God can save one from geometry. Write ABC instead of ACB and you get no marks. Nobody questions these heartless examiners. Just how is ABC different from ACB? They murder the future of students over such triviality. How is eating rice dal roti different from dal roti rice? But do the examiners care? They want you to write only what is written in the book. They want the boys to commit every single word and letter to memory. And they call this miserable rote learning and education. What is the benefit of reading such pointless stuff? Dal, spiced lentil soup. Draw a hypotenuse on a line. The base will be twice the height of the hypotenuse. How does it matter if it is twice or 4 times its height? How am I concerned if it is half its height? To hell with it. But if you have to pass the exam, you must memorize this nonsense. Then they say, write an essay on punctuality at least 4 pages long. And you sit there with the exam notebook in front of you, twiddling your thumbs. Who doesn't know punctuality is great? It makes one's life disciplined, it makes one popular, and you benefit in all spheres of life. 4 pages to write just that? Why take 4 pages to write what can be said in a sentence? As far as I am concerned, it is foolish. This is not proper use of time. Pointless elaboration is a terrible waste of time. We need to say what we wish to say quickly and move on. But no. Come what may, one has to fill 4 pages. 4 complete foolscap-sized pages. This is terrorization of students, isn't it? And the irony is that they want you to write briefly. Write a concise essay on punctuality which should not be shorter than 4 pages in length. Writing briefly comes to 4 pages. And a regular-sized essay would have to be 200 pages long. Run fast, but slowly. Isn't that a paradox? Premchand is using this misrepresentation of fact as a device to underline the hilarity of it all. The elder brother has not understood the basic logic of geometry. Even a young child can understand this, but these teachers just cannot. Yet they claim to be teachers. When you reach my class, brother, you will have to go through the same awful routine. Then you will realize how things actually are. You have topped your class and have your head in the clouds. I might have failed in the exam, but I am older than you. I have more experience of the world. Listen to me seriously, or you will live to regret everything. Thankfully, it was time to go to school, or my elder brother's preaching would have gone on and on. Food turned tasteless in my mouth. All this when I had passed with flying colors. What if I had failed? The frightening picture of studies that my elder brother had drawn scared me. I wonder why I did not run home. Despite all this lecturing, I continued to dislike books. I missed no chance to play. I did study, but just enough to finish my homework and save face in the class. The confidence I had gained vanished. I began to live like a thief again. The annual exams came again soon. It was a coincidence, again I passed, and my elder brother failed. I had not worked too hard, but had topped my class. I was surprised. My brother had worked extremely hard. He had studied every textbook, word by word, all through the day, and sometimes so late into the night that his face had turned pale. Yet he had failed. I felt sorry for him. He cried, so I cried with him. I lost half the joy of topping the class. Had I failed too, maybe my brother would not have been so unhappy. But what had happened had happened. That year, we were only 1 class apart. A wicked thought rose in my mind. If my older brother failed again, I would be in the same class as him, and then he would have no face to lecture me. I forced this wicked idea out of my mind. After all, he scolded me only because he had my best interests at heart. Perhaps it was only because of his scolding that I managed to pass with such good marks. After that, my elder brother softened quite a bit. At times, even when an opportunity to rebuke me came up, my brother stopped himself. Perhaps he had begun to realize that he did not have the same moral right to scold me anymore. I began to take undue advantage of his tolerance and my freedom grew rapidly. I began to believe that I was lucky, and whether or not I studied, I would still clear the exam. I stopped studying. I began to spend all my time kite flying, which I had begun to enjoy very much. I still respected my brother, All my kite flying was done behind his back. Preparations and arrangements for kite flying sessions and tournaments were made secretly. I did not want my elder brother to think that I had less respect for him. One evening I ran mindlessly to catch a falling kite. My eyes were focused on the sky to catch the airborne traveler that slowly drifted down to the ground. Holding aloft bamboo poles and dried tree branches, a whole army of boys ran recklessly to welcome it. It was as though all were flying with the kite in a wide open sky where there were no cars or trams. Suddenly I bumped into my brother, who was possibly returning from the market. He grabbed my hand and asked angrily, blurted out, "Aren't you ashamed of chasing kites with these hooligans? At least have some respect for the fact that you are now in class 8, just one class below me. One should have some concern for one's position." There was a time when people passed class 8 and became naab tahsildars. I know several people who only studied up to class 8 and are first-class deputy magistrates or superintendents today. Naab tahsildars, revenue officials with magisterial powers who might go on to become deputy collectors. So many of our leaders and newspaper editors have studied only up to class 8, yet the highest scholars work under them. And here you are in class 8, chasing a kite with hooligans. This silliness of yours makes me sad. You are sharp. No doubt about that, but what value is your intelligence if it works to kill your self-respect? You feel you are just one class below me, so now I have no right to question you. You are wrong. I am 5 years your senior, and even if we get to be in the same class, and the way these examiners are, we definitely might. Maybe you will even be ahead of me the next year, but this 5-year difference between us will always remain. God himself cannot undo it. I am 5 years your senior and always will be. You would never have the experience of life and the world that I have. Not even if you are a Ph.D. or D. Lit. Wisdom does not come from reading books. Our mother has never been to school, and father possibly never studied beyond class 5 or 6. We might gain all the knowledge in the world, but mother and father will always have the right to take us to task. Not because they are our parents, but because they have more experience. They might not know about the form of government in the USA, or the number of wives Henry VIII had, or the number of planets in the sky, but there are millions of things they know more about. God forbid I should fall sick. In such a situation you would be very nervous. You would only think of telegramming father. In your place, father would send no telegrams or be nervous. He would first diagnose the ailment and treat it himself. He might call a doctor only if he does not succeed. Leave alone an ailment, you and I don't even know how to manage our monthly expenses. The money father sends us is spent by the 3rd week of the month. Then we are down to eliminating all snacks from our life and avoiding the washerman. For the major part of his life, father has respectably raised a family of 9 on half of our allowance. Take our own headmaster. He has an M.A. degree from Oxford. He earns 1,000 rupees a month. But his old mother is needed to manage his household. His degree was of no use when it came to administering the house. When he handled it himself, he just could not make ends meet and had to take loans. Ever since his old mother took charge, the family is flourishing. So brother, do away with your false pride. Do not think you can do as you please just because you are closer to my class in school. You will not go astray while I am around. And if you cannot get that into your thick skull, I would have to use this." He made a slapping motion with his open palm. "I know my words sound like poison to you." My head bowed before his new strategy. I felt really small. In my heart, a deep respect for my older brother sprang up afresh. Teary-eyed, I agreed with him, "Not at all. Every word you have said is true, and you have the right to say so." My brother hugged me. "I don't forbid you to fly kites. I too am tempted to fly them. But if I were to go astray, how would I protect you? I have a duty towards you. That is my burden." At that very moment, a cut kite, its string hanging low, sailed past our heads. A gang of boys was chasing it. Did I tell you my brother was tall? He leapt up, caught the string and rushed towards the hostel. I ran following my brother.